Good evening, Biting Fit fans. I haven't done a Facebook Live on this page for so long. I've been busy with groups and other things, and I felt like I was neglecting you a little bit. So I had an idea to do a Facebook Live about going sugar-free because that's something that seems to be topic of the month in January. Lots of people trying to start afresh with their diet at the start of this year, and a lot of those people I've been speaking to have been trying to go sugar-free as a starting point. So rather than just post loads and loads of information, I thought, why not do a video on it? Why not do a video on how to go sugar-free? So I am going to cover 4 key areas that hopefully will help you. If you are there watching me, there's one person watching at the moment. If you are there watching me and you are listening, please give me a like. Make me feel like I'm not talking to my 4 walls. And do post questions and comments below as I go through. So the 4 things that I want to talk to you about in terms of going sugar-free. I actually want to start by talking about why sugar is bad for you. You will have a concept, an idea as to why it's bad for you. Yes, it causes weight gain, all of those other things. But I want to talk a little bit more about, just exactly how it is bad for you, what it does inside the body, which will hopefully motivate you to help you to give it up. Number 2, I'm going to talk about good sugars versus bad sugars. A lot of people confused as to what they can have, what they can't have, what is sugar, what isn't sugar. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about replacements. So what kind of things you can be eating to replace those sugar cravings. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you this evening. And then the 4th one, I'm going to talk about just a couple of tips, my top tips for when the cravings kick in and you're just dying for sugar and you really just, nothing else will satisfy that craving. So I'm going to talk to you about my tips. So I'm going to start with, why is sugar bad for you? And the thing is, a lot of us know about the fact that it causes weight gain. It's high in calories. Sugar is extra calories that your body doesn't need. And also it causes an insulin release. It causes excess sugar causes an excess insulin release in the bloodstream. And what does that do? Well, insulin is a fat storage hormone. So it encourages fat storage. And of course, we understand about excess carbohydrates and how that can cause weight gain. And so we know that sugar contributes to that. But what a lot of people don't know is other actions of excess sugar in the bloodstream and just how damaging it can be on a systemic level for the body. When I say systemic, I mean it affects all of us. It affects all of our body. It affects your brain, your liver, your digestive tract, everything. So I'm going to talk a bit about that. And it's to do with a process in the body called glycolysation. And what glycolysation is, it's where you have excess sugar in your bloodstream, and to deal with that excess sugar, what your body does is it attaches it on to protein molecules in the body. So imagine this is a sugar molecule, an excess sugar molecule floating around the body, around the bloodstream. And this is a protein molecule. Now, this could be any protein molecule. It could be a molecule in your brain. It could be in your muscles. It could be in your digestive system. It could be anywhere. And what happens is the body attaches the two together like that. It locks them together. And that process is called glycosylation. And what that does is it inactivates that protein, whatever function that protein had. So say it was in your muscles. If that protein was a protein cell in your muscle tissue responsible for muscle function, the sugar stops that molecule from doing its job properly. So the more excess sugar you have, the more excess sugar molecules you have in the body, the more they latch onto more proteins in the body. And so, what does that actually do? Well, if you think about, think about the example I've just given in your muscle cells. If you've got lots of sugar latching onto lots of muscle cells, making them inactive, then you're going to be tired. Your muscle function is going to be impaired. You're going to be really, really tired. That's why, one of the reasons why sugar makes us tired. It also makes us tired by causing inflammation. So it latches onto proteins in our immune system, causing, inflammation in the body, and that makes us tired. It also latches onto molecules in our protein molecules in our brain, and that causes poor mental function. So that process. Oh, and another one. Okay, glycosylation actually makes you look older. Right, we don't want that. So how does that work? Well, we've got protein in our skin, and if you have excess sugar molecules around your body, it latches on to protein molecules in your skin, and that process of glycosylation in your skin actually ages your skin. So the more sugar, let's face it, the more sugar you eat, then the older you look, and we don't want that. So okay, so that's another way that sugar is bad in the body that not many people are aware of. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now I'm going to talk about good sugars and bad sugars, because there's a lot of debate out there, what you can have, what you can't. Can you have fruit, for example? Well, there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum of sugars. And on one end, you've got your bad sugars, and on the other end, you've got your good sugars. And so let's start at the good sugar end. So the good sugar end, we're talking about starches in vegetables, for example. That's an example of some good sugars. So the under the ground sort of vegetables like beetroot, carrots, starchy vegetables, parsnips, things like that. Yes, they contain natural sugars. They contain natural starches, but they are also full of water. And so those kinds of vegetables, I wouldn't, if you're going to go sugar-free, don't start avoiding those. It's not necessary. It's just not necessary to avoid starchy vegetables. So that's so that's my starting point in terms of good sugars. Another one, people say, well, if you're trying to give up sugar, you shouldn't eat fruit. Rubbish. Okay, rubbish. And for one thing, it depends on your starting point, okay? It depends where you're at with your diet now. If your diet is super high in sugar and you're craving sugar all the time and you're eating sugar all the time, then switching from sugar to fruit, how is that a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. It's a good step forwards. So, and don't forget, fruits are full of water again. And my advice to people is if you can eat sugars as nature intended, so if they appear in a food as nature intended, as close to as nature intended as possible, then you're on the right track. So, sugars in fruits, sugars in root vegetables, that is as nature intended. So, don't sweat about foods like that. So now we're going down the scale a bit. So those are your good sugars. And then we come to the middle of the spectrum, if you like. And we're looking at things like dried fruits. Okay. And people say, well, I tend to snack on dried fruits instead of sugar. Well, that's okay to a degree. But something you need to remember is that dried fruits are very high in sugars, and they're very high in fructose. Now, I won't go into scientific detail, but fructose, fructose is not an ideal sugar to be consuming lots of. So I would suggest that if you're on your sugar-free journey, you are better off reaching for fresh fruits than dried fruit. I don't really support the replacement of sugars with dried fruit because it's just pretty much like for like in terms of that side of things. So all of those products like Naked bars and what else? I can't think. Dried, pure dried fruit bars where they say nothing added, no sugar added, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it's pure dried fruit. There's no water in there. So it's high concentration of sugars, which is going to elicit an excess insulin release, high insulin level. And that's what we're trying to avoid here. So then we go further down the scale to your bad sugars, and we're talking refined sugar. So refined sugar is your table sugar. It's things in biscuits and, sweets, cakes, all of those kinds of things. And I really say to people, if you're going to start a sugar-free journey, just start at that end of the spectrum. Get that out of your system first, and then make it a gradual approach. Yes, you can do the cold turkey thing, but it's not easy. and you know you're going to be knackered for 3 to 4 days. The initial 3 to 4 days, it can be quite tiring, especially if you've been dependent on sugar. So if you don't want to feel too exhausted and you want to do it gradually, then start by taking the refined sugar out. Then look at your dried fruits. Then look at, you know, starchy vegetables and fruits if you want to go the whole hog. If you want a low carb diet, if you're specifically looking to lose a lot of weight. So those are that's my sort of comment on good sugars, bad sugars. Then I want to talk about sweeteners, and this is really important, okay? Because you might be thinking, all right, well, how about if I go for low sugar products, low sugar juice, low sugar, I don't know, black currant juice, low sugar products, or you know, no added sugar products. Let me tell you something about no added sugar products. No added sugar products, 99% of them contain a compound, a sweetener called aspartame. And okay, so the calories are low because it doesn't contain any sugar. But let me tell you about aspartame. Now, there's the farming industry have recently adopted the practice of adding aspartame or a compound of aspartame into cattle feed to fatten cattle. Now, how does that work? Well, aspartame actually encourages you to crave carbohydrates and sugars. So, okay, it's not a sugar, it's low in calories, but it actually stimulates carbohydrate and sugar cravings in the first place. And that's why the farming industry are now issuing it to their cattle to fatten cattle up, because cattle eat more food. They eat more food when they've got this in their diet. So do you really want to be eating something that's going to encourage you to eat more sugar? No, you don't want to do that. So you want to avoid the low sugar, no added sugar products, because sweeteners are just the other thing about artificial sweeteners. So whether it's, let's talk about natural artificial sweeteners. Okay, so that's aspartame. But then people say to me, well, what about stevia? What about xylitol? What about coconut sugar? And, you know, I discourage those for 2 reasons. One, because if you're trying to avoid sugar, what ultimately you want to do is you want to change your palate. You want to stop craving sugar in the first place. And so you want to change your palate, and you're not going to change your palate if you keep eating things that are sweet, even if it's not sugar. So even if it's natural sugars, or even if it's these healthy artificial sweeteners, you know, healthy natural sweeteners, you're still going to want sugar, and it's going to be even harder for you to cut the sugar out of your system long term. So that's the first reason, is it does nothing for your palate. And the second reason that I avoid those natural sweeteners is because they still elicit an insulin response in the body, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid an increase in insulin, because that's your fat storage hormone, and it's insulin that does a lot of damage and causes inflammation in the body. So, you know, you want to be avoiding those because they still elicit an insulin response. Now, I know that you'll see that they're low glycemic load, low glycemic index, and all the rest of it. But the research is clear. It still elicits, it still has impact on the way your body metabolizes sugar and an excess release of insulin. So scrap the sweeteners if you can. So then I'm going to talk about, okay, what can you eat? So I'm going to give you some ideas here of things that I like to eat that are my sort of favorite replacement for sugar and sweet things and puddings and desserts and things like that. So so in the evening, if you get sugar cravings in the evening, especially if you've eaten your dinner late at night, something I like to do is I make my own chai drink by warming some oat milk. Now, oat milk is derived from oats, obviously, and it's rich in carbohydrates. So, well, not rich in carbohydrates, but it's derived from carbohydrates. So it has natural starches in it, oat milk. And so it's naturally fairly sweet. And if you add cinnamon to that and some cardamom pods and just warm it in a pan, it can make a really nice warming kind of natural Horlicks before bed. So it's quite naturally sweet and quite relaxing. So that's one of the things I like to do in the evening. Another one is I like to keep fresh berries in the freezer, especially blueberries, because for some reason, when you eat berries out of the freezer, they are sweeter than if they were fresh, even though they've got nothing added to them. And so you can eat them like sweets. So if you freeze some blueberries and eat them after dinner on a plate, just popping them watching television, they're quite sweet, they're quite nice, and they're quite helpful for replacing that sweet craving after dinner. Another one is dried coconut. Dried coconut that's really nice to, unsweetened dried coconut. That's really nice to snack on instead of, say, nuts or some of the bland, more boring things. And it does help to hold off any sweet cravings. Now, nuts, as I say, nuts can be quite bland. I want to talk to you about cashew nuts. Cashew nuts are the nut it's the nut that's the richest source of carbohydrate. And the reason that is because it's not actually a nut, it's a fruit. So if you go for nuts as a little snack during the day, then choose cashew nuts because they're sweeter than the other nuts that you can have. So that's a little tip there about cashew nuts. This is one of my favorite ones. Okay, this is a nice thing to snack on during the day. A great mid-morning sugar replacement or mid-afternoon replacements. You get an apple and you slice it, you core it down the middle, so it's called, and you slice it thinly. And you take 2 of those slices and you spread one of the slices with some peanut butter and you put the other slice on top. And you've got a sliced apple peanut butter sandwich. And it's really nice and it's quite filling. And it feels quite satisfying in terms of replacing that sugar craving. Another of my favorites is natural yogurt with peanut butter, a peanut butter dolloped on top because it's quite rich. It's nice on the palate and it's quite a nice pudding replacement, if you like. You might think, peanut butter with yogurt, but trust me on that. Try it, okay? Peanut butter with yogurt. And finally, if you're a chocolate fan like myself, then another one is 100% raw chocolate drops. Now, they're not always easy to find. I used to find them on Amazon, and you just type in 100% dark raw chocolate drops or chocolate paste. And sometimes Amazon sells them, sometimes they don't. But if you can find them, they're really good. Now, they are really, really bitter. They're an acquired taste. You don't really eat it for the taste. You might want to have it with some fruit to sweeten it up a bit. But what that does, because it's so chocolatey rich, it helps to satisfy that need for chocolate. So that's another one of my tips. And then I have 2 final tips to leave with you. If you have eaten some food and you straight after you think, oh my God, I really want something sweet immediately, go and brush your teeth. Okay, even at work, have a toothbrush and some toothpaste at work and go and brush your teeth. It will help to knock that craving on the head there and then. And the other tip I have for that is if you don't want to brush your teeth or you don't have access to brushing your teeth, drink a glass of water immediately. That's the first thing to do, because sometimes when we want something sweet, our body is telling us that we're actually dehydrated. So drink a glass of water, wait 20 minutes and see if you still want that Mars bar. And if you do, have some natural yogurt with a dollop of peanut butter instead. So anyway, if you found that interesting, let me know. Hopefully there's some nuggets in there to help you on your sugar-free journey. Any questions or comments that you have, please post below. And yeah, just to let you know, my next Get Up and Glow plan is launching on the 15th of January. And I've still got places on that. It's an online group program and it's sugar-free, but it's not very low carb, so it's very doable, it's very easy. It's for busy people on the go who want to reset their bodies after Christmas in a tasty, easy, doable way, even if they're busy and on the go the whole time. So if you're interested in that, please just comment below and I can send you some details. Otherwise, I hope you found that useful and I shall be hopefully doing some more information videos for you. Hi Sue. Yeah, Sue's joining us on that journey. So I'm actually going to share this in my Get Up and Glow group so that they can watch this video as well. So thank you for joining me and I will see you again soon. Bye bye for now.